The Pacers finished with the 5th worst record in the league, the 3rd worst record in the East, and the 7th worst net rating last season. They are in the middle of what seems to be a soft rebuild, and this pick could be the catalyst that gets them back into relevancy. So, who are they likely to select? Well, I have scoured the internet for mock drafts to gain information, and selected 4 players I think have a chance to be selected by them, and I'm gonna give you some info on them. So, without any further dilly-dallying, let's get into it. Let's start with Keegan Murray out of Iowa. Murray might be one of the most solid players in this draft. He was an elite scorer in the Big Ten last season and put up 2K-esque numbers. I think he can scale back his usage and still be effective because of his ability as a shooter, a cutter, and his scoring ability out of early seals on the inside. That low maintenance scoring should pair well with the guards they have. He shouldn't really be that limited as an offensive player too, as long as the jumper translates. His post scoring should also be a nice complement to Miles Turner, and having both frontcourt players able to stretch the floor should give Rick Carlisle some nice options on the offensive end. The Pacers are in a quote-unquote soft rebuild as mentioned in the intro, so the fact that he's 22 shouldn't be a huge issue. The defense is where my evaluation of him differs from the consensus though. I'm high on his potential on that end. He will probably struggle when he's switched onto guards and hyper-athletic wings, but as a rim protector inside and when he's up against slower wings and bigs, I think he can be pretty good. The potential departure of TJ Warren should immediately open up a spot for Murray to slot right into. Moving on, let's talk about Benedict Matheson out of Arizona. There's really no need to complicate the case for Matheson. He was a really nice shooter during his time in Arizona. His movement off the ball was great. He's a high-level athlete too. His combination with Hield and Duarte on the offensive end should give teams a real headache. Plus, there's both defensive and ball handling potential there too. And that's really where the upside with this pick would lie. If he can harness his athleticism and focus more on the defensive end, which I think will happen if he has a smaller offensive load, I think he actually has potential to be a really good defender. He also has some creation potential on the ball, and I would be working hard to try and get that out of him if I was the Pacers. Because, you can never have too many ball handlers who are deadly off the ball. If all that doesn't happen, he'll at least be a very good shooter who can attack in transition and not be a wreck defensively. The realistic worst case scenario is he becomes a knockdown shooter with great movement on the perimeter. The best case scenario is he adds the ability to become a secondary ball handler and capitalizes on his athletic gifts by working hard on his awareness and IQ on defense along with great shooting to become a high-level starter. Let's now talk about AJ Griffin out of Duke. Griffin was an elite shooter during his time at Duke. He made shots off the catch and pulled up from all around the perimeter. He's got a funky shooting stance, but it works for him. He should be able to make shots from the jump, and the Pacers will need that as they were in the bottom third for three-point efficiency last season. He shows flashes of good burst and explosion, but they were few and far between. I suspect that was as the result of past injuries. I mentioned this in my full report on him, but those injuries either held him back from reaching his full potential, or they may have ended up limiting that potential altogether. Time will tell with that. Defensively, I like his frame and general strength, but his feet are slow and his hands aren't particularly active. He's gonna need to put in some work on that end to ensure he ends up being a real two-way player. That should be a bit of a red light for a team like the Pacers who didn't have a great defense last season. The offensive upside is there though, and adding him to the roster would mean that between him, Buddy Hield, and Chris Duarte, the Pacers probably have at least 2 knockdown shooters on the court at all times. Finally, let's talk about Johnny Davis out of Wisconsin. Johnny Davis is a scorer. That should mean he'd fit right onto a team that didn't have a single player average at least 20 points per game last season. With TJ Warren a free agent this offseason, I could see the Pacers trying to replace his production with Davis. They're different players, but are similar in some ways. Neither are great athletes or elite shooters. They're extremely crafty and intelligent offensive players though, and have a variety of nifty little moves and tricks to get free from defenders and get their shots off. I think Davis has some ball handling potential, but I don't think he'll ever be a primary ball handler. Fortunately, you'll never have to be that, especially if Malcolm Brogdon and Tyrese Haliburton are on the roster. The jumper looked very good despite the below par efficiency. His free throw percentage was good, so I'm gonna buy that if he cuts out the desperation shots he had to take at Wisconsin and factor in the fact that it's gonna be more open at the NBA level, I think the efficiency will just naturally get better. Defensively, he's not physically gifted, but he's extremely sharp, and despite his offensive load, brought a lot of energy and passion, which can go a long way to at least being effective. The guard situation would get interesting with the addition of Davis, but I'm sure they'd find a way of making it work.